When I smelled the ground shake and heard the roar of falling stone, I knew something was wrong. Dust filled the air, stinging my nose, and shouts echoed through the chaos. But my ears searched for only one sound, my partner's voice. I am a police K-9, trained for discipline, for focus, for action. My life is service. My loyalty bound to the man who became more than a handler. He became my brother. That day when the building cracked and the earth swallowed him whole, they told me to move back, but I refused. I would not leave my officer underground. I remember when we first met, they called me Rex, a strong German shepherd with muscles coiled like springs, a coat black and brown like the forest I once ran through as a pup. I had already been through handlers before. Some said I was too stubborn, too driven, too intense. But he was different. His name was Daniel. His eyes were steady, calm, with a kind of quiet fire that matched my own. He didn't try to dominate me. He didn't bark orders to break me. He stood beside me, spoke softly, and waited. For the first time, I felt like someone saw me not just as a tool, but as a partner. Training with him wasn't easy, but it was right. He ran beside me through obstacle courses, our breaths sinking until I could anticipate his every move. He trusted me to sniff out hidden threats, and I trusted him to lead us into danger without fear. We learned each other's rhythms. When he tensed, I braced. When I barked, he listened. We became a unit. Some called us inseparable, and perhaps we were, though neither of us yet knew how much that bond would be tested. The mission began like many others. A raid, a building suspected to hide armed men and illegal weapons. The night was heavy with the smell of oil and smoke. Daniel fastened my vest, his hand brushing over my head, his whisper soft. "We've got this, buddy." Those words always steadied me. We moved through the darkness, boots crunching on broken glass, radios crackling with clipped voices. My nose caught scents, fear, gunpowder, sweat. My ears tracked every sound. Then without warning, the world split open. An explosion ripped through the air, deafening, blinding. The ground buckled beneath us. Walls cracked. Concrete screamed as it tore apart. Dust turned the night to smoke. Shouts erupted as men scrambled, some injured, some shouting commands. I lunged toward Daniel, but the floor between us gave way. He fell, swallowed by the collapse, his voice cut off mid-command. Panic surged through me, sharper than any fear I'd known. My claws scraped against shifting stone, my throat raw with frantic barks. Hands grabbed at my harness, voices yelled over the chaos, ordering me back. "He's gone!" someone shouted, but I knew better. My nose burned with his scent, buried beneath dust and dirt, but still there, faint yet alive. My partner wasn't gone, not yet. My body twisted, muscles straining against the grip of the officers who tried to pull me away. I snapped, not at them, but at the very idea of leaving. My growls were primal, my heart pounding with a single truth. I would not abandon him. I dropped to the ground, nose pressed against the rubble. The scent was faint, but it was enough. I pawed furiously, dirt flying behind me, my nails tearing at stone. My barks were sharp, relentless, echoing through the night. The officers hesitated, some pulling back, unsure. The chief shouted again, "Stand down! The structure's unstable." But I would not. My voice rose louder, my claws dug deeper, until finally one officer crouched beside me, watching the way I focused on one spot. "He's on to something," I heard him say. Others gathered, their doubt cracking. I barked again, my body pressed low, eyes locked on the ground that separated me from Daniel. They began to dig, shovels in hands tearing at the debris where I insisted. Every second felt like eternity. My ears strained, hoping, begging for any sign. Then faint, so faint only my heart caught it, I heard it. A muffled sound, a gasp of air. My body trembled. My bark turned urgent, desperate. "He's alive!" The men worked faster now, urgency replacing hesitation. Dust coated their skin, their breaths harsh, but still they dug. My nose told me the truth. Daniel was there, his scent growing stronger with every stone lifted, every handful of dirt cleared. I pressed my muzzle to the ground, whining, encouraging them, refusing to rest. My paws were raw, blood staining the rubble, but pain meant nothing. Only he mattered, only his survival. At last, a cry erupted. "We've got him!" Hands reached into the darkness, pulling away stone to reveal a body, broken but breathing. Daniel, my Daniel. His face was pale, his lips cracked, but his chest rose weakly, fighting for life. My heart surged as I lunged forward, nuzzling his arm, whining frantically. His eyes fluttered open just enough to see me. His lips moved, no louder than a whisper, but I understood. "Good boy." Relief crashed through me, stronger than the fear, stronger than the exhaustion. I pressed against him, my body shaking, my breath hot on his skin. They tried to move me back as medics swarmed, but I refused to let go. My eyes never left his face. My nose never left his scent. They could bandage him, carry him, save him, but I would not leave him. Not now, not ever. That night the others called me a hero. They said I had saved his life. But in truth, I hadn't done anything extraordinary. I had only done what I was born to do, stand by him no matter the cost. I am a K9. My loyalty is not optional. My love is not conditional. When the ground swallowed him, I did not hesitate. I refused to leave my officer underground. He didn't earn my trust with treats or tricks. He earned it with time. In the first weeks after we were paired, he said my name the way you say I promise, Rex, and waited for me to answer in my own language. We walked perimeter drills at dawn when the asphalt still held the nights cool, his boots scuffing a rhythm I learned by heart. He never dragged the leash, he matched my pace. When I pushed hard, he let me. When I froze at a sudden clang of metal or the bark of a distant dog, he paused too, letting the sound pass through us like wind through grass. On the training field, he kept his voice low. Other handlers barked commands like thunder. He spoke like steady rain. It wasn't softness, it was control, precision, respect. He treated my nose like a compass and my body like a blade. "Find," he would whisper, and I would feel the words slide into my muscles. We became the kind of pair who didn't need to shout to be heard. The first time he trusted me with something that mattered, it was a missing child call at dusk. The boy's scent was old and muddled with cut grass and bicycle oil, his trail skittering along sidewalks, then vanishing into the noise of a busy street. Officers fanned out. Radios crackled. My partner crouched, pressed a tiny sock to my nose, and watched my eyes. I took the scent. It unfurled in my head. Warm skin, soap, the tang of fear, then broke apart like a flock of sparrows. I chose the freshest feather of it and pulled. He followed, not questioning, not correcting. We cut through backyards, through a hole in a fence, across a pitch where teenagers shouted and laughed. I ignored the ball that skittered toward my paws. He nudged it away with a boot without breaking stride. Behind a row of dumpsters, I found the boy wedged under a pallet, hiding from a world that felt too big. My partner knelt first, hands open, voice soft. I lay down, nose on my paws so the boy would see a dog at rest, not a weapon. He came out. My partner looked at me and didn't say anything for a long moment. He just touched the side of my neck and let his breath slow against my ear. That was the first time I felt pride settle into me, like heat from a sun-warmed stone. We accumulated small rituals. He checked my paws after every call, fingers counting pads, nails, the spaces where grit hides. He wiped my face after I ate, the cloth smelling like laundry in his skin. I learned the sound of his bad days, the way keys hit his desk a little too hard, the longer exhale before he clipped on my vest. On those days, I leaned my weight against his knee and stayed there until he steadied. In return, he learned my tells, the extra lick of my nose when a scent line thinned, the tail drop that meant gun oil ahead, the little puff of breath I make before I commit to a surge. We were two halves of a single decision. There were hard calls too, the kind that leave sounds inside your skull. A barricaded door in a hallway that smelled like old coffee, bleach, and fear. The thump of a man's heartbeat through cheap wood as I braced and barked, my teeth showing not for menace but to fill the air with force. A field search in winter where the wind cut straight through my coat and his gloves stiffened with frost. Yet he held the line slack so I could quarter the terrain the way I needed. A riverbank at night with a faint trail carrying grief along with it. He let me take him into darkness because my nose said the truth lived there. On those long nights when flashing lights painted the world in red and blue and the edges of everything felt too sharp, he shared his sandwiches. Bread, turkey, sometimes just peanut butter. He never fed me on scene if work remained, but when the call ended and the world snapped back into its regular size, he'd break a corner of bread and press it into my mouth like a benediction. I thought about that later, when bread was all I had to hold me together on the worst days of my life. He taught me that my job was not teeth, my job was time. Hold the space until help arrives. Hold the line until the others can move. Hold a scent when it's thin. Hold still when a child is afraid. And sometimes, hardest of all, hold back when everything in you wants to break forward. We practiced thresholds until they felt like gravity. He would stand just inside a doorway, hand open, palm down. I could feel the vibration of his caution before he lifted a finger. Every pass, fail in training was a vote in a quiet election. He kept voting for us. I kept winning for him. The day before the collapse, we ran the obedience course like it was a dance. Sit, down, heel, here. But he always wrapped the medal in meaning. With me, he'd say, and I knew he didn't just mean to his side. He meant in it together. That night he stayed late at the locker, rubbing a spot on his shoulder. He smiled when he saw me watching. "It's nothing," he said. It wasn't nothing. It was pain he would carry without complaint. I leaned into his hip as we walked out into the dark, and he rested his hand on my head for 3 breaths longer than usual. When the building gave way, 100 drills slammed into me at once. Sound location, filter human shouts from structural groan, air quality, dust, concrete, copper tang, threat vector, falling debris, unsecured rebar, secondary collapse. And under all of that, my anchor, the molecular map of my partner's body. Sweat, cotton, the citrus of his soap, the mild ache of his shoulder, the distinct mineral edge of his vest nylon. People think scent is just smell. It's not. It's story. It's a whole history unwinding in the air. His story was under the earth, thinned by dust, fluttering like a trapped bird. I locked onto it and everything else went quiet. They teach you in rubble work to be a metronome. Fast waste energy, slow waste life. I set my pace to the count he'd trained into my muscles. Scratch, scratch, pause, listen. Scratch, scratch, pause, listen. He had drilled that rhythm with me on mock piles, rewarding the stillness between actions as heavily as the action itself. Now the stillness paid out. In the pauses, I heard a shift, a near sound that wasn't wind, a vibration along bone rather than ear. The others saw only a dog clawing dirt. I knew I was our instrument, tuned to one frequency. I widened my search pattern inches at a time, nose combing layers where dust shortened breath and made the world taste like chalk. His scent line wavered, broke, returned. I circled and angled, triangulating the place where the story was strongest. When I froze and pressed my chest to the stones, it wasn't defiance, it was math. Hands grabbed my harness, hauled me back. The words were the kind officers say when the target is gone and the scene is hot. I met their eyes and gave them what he taught me to give when words fail. Insistence, not frenzy, focus. I dropped my head to the exact spot again and placed my paw there. Claws tucked, pad flat, holding the point the way he taught me to mark. When they tried a second time to move me, I went boneless, then surged forward at the exact beat I felt movement below. It wasn't much. The earth breathed. I barked once, a short, sharp report, and then I shut up and stared, because he taught me that you bark to gather, and you go still to instruct. Finally, one of them, a younger one who had watched us work before, said, "Here. He's calling it here." He put his shovel in where my paw had been and took the first cut. Dust filled my nose, burned my throat, made my eyes leak, but the stronger the human world became, the stronger Daniel's story got. The track of him laced my mouth with metal and sweat and fear, and the deep animal threat of a man refusing to stop. The chief's voice still thundered about load-bearing beams and risk. I heard another sound then, a faint scuff, a caught breath below the scrape of shovel blades. I dropped my head so low my chin hit rock and gave a low whine I hadn't made since I was a pup. Half prayer, half command. The young officer's hands sped up. Others joined. Rubble moved in brutal, awkward inches. A helmet lamp found a pocket of dark. In the split seconds between the work, memory pressed through me. The boy under the pallet, the winter field, the sandwich bread shared at 2 a.m., the thumb that always found the spot behind my left ear, the ritual of him checking each of my paws with his careful human hands. I kept digging because he had kept me whole. Loyalty is not a feeling. It is a series of chosen acts. When they hauled him up, the night went silent in my head. Everything narrowed to the pale shape of his face streaked with dirt and blood, the flutter of his eyelids, the smallest lift of his chest. I pushed through arms and knees and gear and put my nose against his wrist because that's where the story is loudest. Warm, faint, but there. The medics did their work and I did mine. Stay. He opened his eyes a slit, enough to recognize the outline of me, and in that ruined place I heard the word that seals 1,000 drills into the yes of a life. With me. I laid down so that my ribs touched the ground and felt the earth answer with his pulse. They loaded him onto the stretcher. I climbed without being asked and settled where my weight wouldn't jostle cords or hands. Someone said regulations, someone else said exceptions. My partner would have laughed at that, the way rules and love tangle. The ambulance door clanged shut. Sirens spun the world into a tunnel. I kept my nose on his shoulder and counted the beats like I counted steps on a line. He had taught me pacing. I would give it back now, breathing with him until his breath learned its rhythm again. People later called what I did brave. To me, it was the most ordinary thing I know. I followed the truth my nose told me and held the point until the people who dig with their hands could take over. If you want a word that matters, choose faithful. It is not dramatic. It is daily. It is a dog's backbone. And when the earth tried to take him from me, I leaned my whole life against that word and did not move. A hospital smelled different from anywhere else. They carry layers of scents, bleach sharp enough to sting, latex gloves, sweat laced with worry, and beneath it all, the fragile thread of life itself. As they wheeled Daniel through the double doors, I pressed my paws against the gurney, refusing to be pulled away. My nails clacked against the frame with every bump, my chest brushing the white sheet that covered him. The medics spoke in quick bursts, codes and numbers I didn't understand, but their urgency told me enough. He was alive but hanging by a thread. A nurse tried to block me, hands raised as if to push me back, but my growl rumbled low, steady, not of threat, but of promise. One of the officers spoke quickly on my behalf. He saved him. Let the dog stay. Perhaps they heard the weight in his voice, because the nurse lowered her hands and I was allowed to follow. They rolled Daniel into a bright room that smelled of metal and electricity. Machines hummed, doors slammed, fabric rustled. My eyes never left his face. I sat in the corner, watching the people swarm him. Wires crawled across his skin like vines. Masks covered his mouth. Tubes carried air where his lungs faltered. My ears pinned back at every sharp beep, every cry of instruction. But I didn't move. I was his anchor, even in silence. Hours passed like storms. I stayed still, only shifting when exhaustion weighed my body too heavily to hold upright. Each time I lay down, I made sure my nose still pointed toward him. His scent was thinner now, fragile as smoke, but it was there. As long as it was there, I would not give up. When the night deepened, they transferred him to a quiet room. The lights dimmed, the chaos softened into steady beeps and rhythmic breaths from the machine. I curled at the foot of his bed, resting my head on my paws, eyes fixed on the rise and fall of his chest. Every breath was a victory. Every exhale whispered, "Still here." The days blurred. Nurses came and went. Doctors checked charts. Officers visited and whispered in hushed tones. Some patted my head. Some shook theirs at the sight of me camped permanently by his side. None could move me. They could no more uproot me than they could stop the sun from rising. My place was here, always. Sometimes I dreamed. In those dreams, we were back on the training field, running the obstacle course side by side, his laughter cutting through the air when I cleared the highest wall. Other times, the dreams twisted dark. I saw rubble closing in again, his hand slipping away into the ground. Those nights, I woke with a start, my heart hammering, only to see him still lying there, breathing. My body pressed closer to the bed, just to be sure. It was in the third week that I saw his fingers twitch. At first, I thought I imagined it. My ears pricked, my body frozen. Then it came again, a slight shift, a curl of movement. A low whine escaped me, sharp enough to draw a nurse rushing in. She looked, gasped, and hurried to fetch the doctor. I climbed onto the bed before anyone could stop me, my nose pressed to his hand. His scent had grown stronger, richer, filled with life clawing its way back. I licked his skin, hoping he would feel me there, calling him home. The doctors worked, adjusting machines, speaking in tones that rose with excitement. His eyelids fluttered. His lips moved, soundless at first, then forming one word, broken but clear. Rex. My name. My body trembled from nose to tail. My bark cracked through the room, echoing down sterile halls, startling nurses but filling my chest with fire. He knew me. He was coming back. From that moment, recovery began. It was not swift nor easy. His body had been broken, his breath stolen, but piece by piece he climbed back. He learned to move again, to stand, to walk with slow, painful steps. And through it all, I was there. When he struggled, I pressed against his side, letting my strength hold him steady. When frustration burned in his eyes, I nudged his hand with my nose, reminding him he was not alone. He whispered to me often, words I couldn't always understand, but the tone mattered more than the meaning. Gratitude, determination, love. Officers visited often, bringing news of commendations, calling me a hero in voices that carried awe. They said I had saved his life, that without me, he would have suffocated beneath the rubble. They didn't understand. I had only done what any dog like me would do, what loyalty demands, what love insists. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the hospital walls in gold, Daniel sat upright in bed, his hand resting on my head. His voice was weak but certain. "We made it, buddy." His eyes met mine, filled with the same steady fire I had seen the first day we trained. For a moment, everything, the dust, the collapse, the pain, fell away. It was just us again, man and dog, two halves of one heartbeat. When he was finally discharged, the world outside felt new. The air tasted different, fresher, like victory. Officers lined the walkway, clapping, cheering, cameras flashing. But I heard only him. His hand brushed my head, his whisper soft. With me. Always with him. The first day back at the precinct felt like walking into the heart of a memory, only brighter. The walls smelled of polish and paper. Radios crackled with their familiar static. And the boots of officers beat the tile floors with rhythm I had missed. Daniel walked beside me, slower than before, his steps deliberate, but each one a victory. His body still bore the scars of what had happened underground, lines stitched into his skin, stiffness in his shoulder, a limp when the weather pressed too hard. But his spirit was unbroken. His hand brushed my fur as if to remind himself I was still real, still there, still his. And I pressed against him in answer, always. The others gathered as we entered. Applause echoed, cheers rising like thunder, but all I cared about was him. Cameras flashed, medals gleamed, words like hero and miracle rang in the air. They tried to hang the praise around my neck, pinning ribbons to my vest. But none of that mattered. I hadn't dug through the rubble for glory. I hadn't barked myself raw for recognition. I had done it because he was mine, and I was his, and that is all a K9 ever needs. That night, when the noise of celebration had faded, it was just us again. Daniel sat on the edge of his bed at home, the moonlight spilling across his face. He was quiet for a long time, his hand resting on my head. Finally he spoke, his voice low but heavy with meaning. I thought I'd never see you again, but you wouldn't let me go, would you? I lifted my head, pressed my nose against his chest, and listened to his heartbeat, steady and strong. No words were needed. He knew. The days returned to rhythm, though everything felt more precious. Our morning runs were slower, but filled with laughter. Our drills were shorter, but sharper, each movement soaked in gratitude. When we stepped onto a scene, officers watched us with new eyes, no longer just as a team, but as a story. A reminder of what loyalty looks like when tested by earth and death. Civilians sometimes approached us, tears in their eyes, reaching out to touch me, whispering thanks though I hadn't saved them personally. They weren't just thanking me. They were thanking the bond. The idea that love between a man and his dog could dig someone out of the grave itself. But beyond the medals, the stories, the headlines that called me a true miracle, there were quiet moments that mattered more. The nights Daniel sat at the kitchen table, his head in his hands, remembering the darkness underground, and I rested my chin on his knee until his breathing slowed. The afternoons he stretched on the couch, still sore, and I curled beside him, our bodies fitting like puzzle pieces. The mornings when he clipped my vest and whispered, with me, the two words that had always defined us, but now carried the weight of life returned. I sometimes thought back to those minutes beneath the rubble, the frantic digging, the world insisting he was gone, while my nose screamed otherwise. If I had moved, if I had doubted, if I had obeyed the wrong voice, he would not be here now. The weight of that knowledge could have crushed me, but instead it became something else. A reminder of what I was born for. Not just to serve, not just to obey, but to love so fiercely that even the earth could not silence it. Daniel healed in ways that could not be measured by medicine alone. His limp eased, his lungs grew stronger, his smile returned more often. Yet sometimes when the lights dimmed and the house grew quiet, he would look at me with eyes that carried shadows. He had seen the darkness too closely, felt the ground pressing in. He told me once, when I couldn't breathe, I thought of you. I thought of how you'd never stop. That kept me alive. His words filled me with a pride deeper than any medal could bring. We went back on duty months later, stepping into the world as we always had. Partners. Our first call together was simple, a search and rescue drill staged for trainees. But to us, it was more than that. As I ran the course, nose low, ears sharp, I caught the faint scent of a hidden officer pretending to be lost. My body surged forward, muscles remembering every lesson, every rhythm. Daniel jogged behind me, slower than before but steady, his voice calm. When I found the target and barked, Daniel's laugh carried across the field. It was a sound I thought I'd never hear again, and in that moment, the world felt whole. Life will always bring danger. Buildings will fall, gunfire will roar, missions will press us into the jaws of fear. But I no longer fear the darkness. I have faced it. I have clawed through it. I have pulled my partner from its grip. Whatever comes, we will face it together. Because I am not just a dog, I am his dog, his brother, his shield, his friend. So when people ask why I refused to move, why I barked and dug until my paws bled, I cannot explain it in human words. Loyalty is not something you decide. It is something you are. My heartbeat carries his. My breath matches his. My life belongs to his. And when the earth tried to bury him, I dug until I brought him back. I am a police K9. I am trained, disciplined, fierce. But that day, I was more than all of that. I was love refusing to surrender. I was faith clawing through stone. I was a dog who knew his place was by his partner's side, even underground. And I will never, not in this life or the next, leave him.